So today we've published our new forecasts and outlook for the Scottish economy over the next 3 to 4 years. And what we predict is that the economy will continue to grow over the next few years, with growth of around about 1% in 2016, rising to about 1.1% next year, and going up to around about 1.6% by 2019. So the economy will still continue to grow, but it will grow at quite a fragile rate. And the key driver of that is Brexit and the challenges we think the economy will face over the next few years as we begin to adjust to life outside the European Union. So in the global context, the global economy has been holding up relatively well. United States growth has been quite strong and quite balanced over the last few months and the last year in total. Emerging markets continue to be a bit of a concern. Volatility, particularly in certain economies such as China, potentially pose a risk to long-term economic growth for the world economy. But overall, the UK has actually done quite well in comparison to most other economies. So you're looking at the UK potentially being the fastest growing economy in the G7 this calendar year. But growth is forecast to slow in the UK. We know that the uncertainty around Brexit will start to feed through to business investment. We've also seen a sharp rise in inflation in recent months, which in turn will feed through to lower levels of consumption over the next 2 years. So the outlook is a lot more challenging than it was prior to the referendum, but overall the economy has held up to be much more resilient than most forecasters and most economists predicted, and therefore we think that that will continue into 2017, and that lets us uplift our forecast for the Scottish economy over the next couple of years. Crucially as well, the Bank of England has taken forward quite a significant stimulus package, which in turn will benefit the economy, will boost lending in the economy. And also we know that the conditions in the North Sea, while continuing to remain really quite challenging and not to underestimate the scale of the issues that they still continue to face, but actually it's slightly more positive or less pessimistic than it was back in the summer. The global oil price has been rising. And also if you look at survey indicators that we do into the sector, they started to stabilise, okay, at a relatively low level, but they've actually stabilised rather than continue to decline. So overall, we forecast that the Scottish economy will continue to grow into next year. There'll be a modest rise in unemployment as the weakness in activity begins to come back on stream. And we think that the key impacts will come through in terms of lower levels of investment, lower levels of consumption relative to what had been planned. In terms of the key challenge, what this poses for is sets the outlook for what's going to happen this week with the Scottish budget. And we now know that with the substantial new fiscal powers coming to Scotland, what really matters is not just the block grant from Westminster, but also how Scottish tax revenues are going to perform. And crucially there is our relative performance compared to the UK as a whole. We know that Scotland has been growing slower than the rest of the UK over the last year, 18 months. So actually addressing that gap will be absolutely crucial for future public services. So the budget will be really interesting this week, both in terms of the forecasts the government do for the economy to see whether we're actually going to recover some of that gap, but also from a policy perspective about what the new Finance Secretary might do to try and boost growth back into the Scottish economy.